Hi, my name is Dr. Kaylee Crandall, and today I'm going to be talking about collaborative classroom instruction and how the tools provided by edutechservices.com can support school counselors. Before we go into the website, though, we're first going to start by discussing collaborative classroom instruction and what this means for school counselors. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to define collaborative classroom instruction and explain the process for operationalizing student standards in school counseling. All right, so let's get started with our first topic, which is defining collaborative classroom instruction. As this quote so beautifully illustrates, collaboration is natural and essential in school counseling. Just like bees, flowers, and the wind work together to create growth, in schools, that same kind of synergy happens when teachers, administrators, and school counselors work together. School counselors aren't just support staff. We're instructional partners. We help enhance classroom learning by contributing expertise in areas like emotional regulation, goal setting, decision making, and career development. When we collaborate intentionally, we ensure that students are not only learning content, but also gaining the personal and social skills they need to succeed in life. So, just like pollen needs the wind and the bees to reach its full potential, our students benefit the most when we work together to distribute knowledge and support across the school system. The information shared here is taken from the most recent edition of the Utah model. Collaborative classroom instruction isn't just an add-on, it's a proactive way to integrate academic, wellness, civic, and college and career development directly into the heart of the classroom. Counselors and teachers work together to build student competencies that align with long-term goals for student success. Let's break this down a little more. So according to the most recent version of the Utah model, collaborative classroom instruction consists of written instructional program that is comprehensive in scope, which means the curriculum addresses all aspects of student development and not just limited to a single issue or one-time lesson. It's also preventative, which refers to efforts that help students avoid problems before they occur by teaching foundational skills early and often. It also is proactive, and being proactive means that counselors intentionally plan and deliver instruction that anticipates and addresses students' evolving needs. So it's not just waiting for referrals, it's showing up first. And then final, it's developmental in design. This means the curriculum is age appropriate and builds on itself over time, just like a math or language arts curriculum would. This slide outlines how classroom instruction is delivered according to both the Utah model and the ASCA national model. In Utah, collaborative classroom instruction is delivered through direct classroom instruction, where counselors may teach lessons, co-teach with teachers, or support classroom units using counseling expertise. It's also delivered through parent workshops, which extend learning beyond the classroom and increase parent involvement. This is an important factor in student engagement. Also, it's delivered through interdisciplinary curriculum development, where counselors collaborate with teachers to align lessons across subjects and integrate counseling competencies into the academic core. The ASCA model takes a broader view of instructional delivery, aligning with MTSS Tier 1 and Tier 2 strategies. Instruction happens not only in whole class settings, but also in small groups, which target specific student needs, and individual lessons where counselors can personalize support for those individual students. Both models emphasize that curriculum delivery is not limited to traditional teaching. It's collaborative, strategic, and tailored to support student development in every area. So how can collaboration guide curriculum decisions? Well, collaborating with teachers helps school counselors ensure their lessons are relevant and not redundant. One effective strategy is to distribute a curriculum delivery survey, which allows teachers to share what topics they're already covering in the classroom. This helps counselors identify gaps, avoid duplication, and align their instruction with classroom needs, which creates a more cohesive and supportive learning experience for students. This is where the tools from edutechservices.com comes in handy. In 2016, CT Surveys was developed as a website for school counselors to use to collect data from parents, students, and teachers, not only to help identify the needs of their program, but also to identify the different curriculum that's already being covered.
In 2025, this name was updated to utscsurveys.com as school counseling is no longer housed under the CTE department at USBE. This past year, we have now changed the name to edutechservices.com as a one-stop shop for school counselors to come and not only collect data for their program assessment, but also this will be the same place where school counselors will use to access the data project template. So now let's spend a few minutes going over the program assessment tools available on edutechservices.com.
On the site, there are two different types of surveys, or maybe you'd consider it as categories of surveys. So you have the systemic needs assessment, which is sent to parents, teachers, and students. And the purpose of this survey is just to identify the needs of the school counseling program, as well as the students in the school. There's also a curriculum delivery survey, which is what we're talking about today. So the curriculum delivery survey is really great to help ensure that students develop those competencies that are integrated and cross-curricular, meaning they're embedded into the context of core academic instruction whenever possible. It really supports school counselors in aligning their curriculum with both teacher instruction and student needs. It also helps inform the development of collaborative classroom lessons, your plan for college and career readiness meetings, and whole student support strategies. So on this slide, we can see an example of what kind of question would be asked on the systemic needs assessment compared to the curriculum delivery survey. As a reminder, the systemic needs assessment is sent to students, parents, and teachers, whereas the curriculum delivery survey is only sent to teachers. So here we have a student survey, and the student is being asked, do you need additional support from your school counselor in any of the following areas? However, again, the curriculum delivery survey is really going to help school counselors understand which of the student standards are being completely taught, minimally taught, or never taught in a teacher's curriculum. So here a teacher is being asked if they teach students how to relate school to life experiences in their classroom. And so you can kind of see from this example the difference between the types of questions asked on the systemic needs assessment compared to the curriculum delivery survey. So now you may be asking yourself, where did the curriculum delivery survey questions come from? Or in other words, how do school counselors know what student standards they are supposed to teach? The questions in the curriculum delivery survey aren't random. They're directly tied to the Utah K-12 school counseling program standards. These standards are aligned with Utah's Portrait of a Graduate and the Utah School Counselor Program components, which include academic, life and career, citizenship, and health and wellness development. If you're wondering where to find the exact competencies and benchmarks we use to guide instruction, they're outlined clearly on pages 39 through 44 of the Utah School Counseling Program Technical Assistance Manual. These standards ensure that we're not just teaching what we think is important, but what has been carefully developed to meet the whole child needs of Utah students. All right, now this slide helps show the direct alignment between the curriculum delivery survey and the Utah model. When we ask teachers questions like, do you teach students how to develop an understanding that post-secondary education and lifelong learning are essential for long-term career success? We're not just making those questions up. Again, they're being pulled straight from the Utah School Counseling Program Technical Assistance Manual. So for example, under Competency 2, we can see here on the right side, Life and Career Development, you can see that the exact skill listed as benchmark 2.1.1. So the survey isn't just busy work, it's how we ensure that we're covering the essential competencies students need for college, career, and life readiness. It's also giving us a clear picture of what's already being taught, what might be missing, and where counselors can fill in the gaps without duplicating efforts. So while Utah has its own set of student standards outlined in the Utah model for what school counselors use to determine what curriculum to cover, these here are the ASCA National Student Standards, which outline the knowledge, attitudes, and skills that all students need to achieve academic success, prepare for college and careers, and develop socially and emotionally. These standards were developed based on research and best practices across education, and they're nationally recognized. You'll notice that many of these ASCA standards directly align with Utah student standards, which makes them highly relevant for your work. It's especially important for you to be familiar with the ASCA standards though, because they are part of the praxis exam. Essentially, think of these as the national framework that complements what we already do here in Utah. School counselors in Utah can use the Student Mindsets and Competencies Action Plan to help them move past the data collection phase where you see some of the areas that are being taught, completely taught, or not taught on the curriculum delivery survey. And they can use that information to then plan what interventions they will implement to address the gaps identified in the data analysis. So again, here we have the Student Mindsets and Competencies Action Plan. You can see here on the very left column that you can list 1 to 3 priorities. And again, that's based off of what things are not currently being covered, and then what interventions you'll use, and then who your target audience will be. So this is a great tool, again, to move past that data collection phase to actually taking action based on those results. All right, let's move on to our second topic now, which is operationalizing the student standards. So once we've identified which student standards need to be covered in our curriculum, we need to make them actionable in our day-to-day work. In order to do this, we have to operationalize them. That means breaking them down into concrete learning objectives, clear, teachable skills, and knowledge students should gain. These objectives become the foundation for how we plan lessons, guide students through advising, deliver interventions, and measure outcomes. It's how we ensure our work isn't just well-intentioned, it's effective and aligned with student growth. This slide shows what it looks like to operationalize a student standard, or in other words, how we turn the broad expectations into measurable, student-centered learning objectives and meaningful assessments. The student standard here is from the Utah model, develop the understanding that post-secondary education, skills training, and lifelong learning are necessary for long-term career success. To operationalize this, we created 2 clear learning objectives. These objectives are specific, grade level appropriate, and measurable, and they guide what we teach and how we're going to assess it. You'll also see the assessment of learning aligns with the objectives. The worksheet and exit ticket allow students to demonstrate their understanding and apply it to their own goals. This kind of alignment is what ensures the school counseling curriculum is purposeful, data-informed, and effective. Not just vague inspiration, but real skill building. And as we create our learning objectives, we want to remember that the goal of an educator is to encourage higher order thought in their students by building up from lower level cognitive skills. So we can use Bloom's taxonomy to help us do this. So for example, maybe when a student's in 7th grade, we can start at a lower level where all we want them to be able to do is this level of understanding. So our learning objective could be something like identify all of the parts of a resume. But maybe by the time they're a junior in high school, we want them to actually be able to create a resume, which again is that higher order thought in our students. So this is just something that you want to keep in mind as you're developing your learning objectives to try to use different levels of Bloom's taxonomy. And one of the easiest ways to measure students' learning is to create a pre and a post assessment for each of the student standards. This will help answer the question, did students actually learn what was taught? Was this a good use of instructional learning time? And was this a valuable use of the school counselor in students' time? Because again, the purpose is that we want to show that students are actually learning and acquiring the student standards that we're trying to teach. The Utah Lesson Plan and Results template is an excellent template that you can use as you're creating your collaborative classroom lessons to make sure that you're using best practice, that you're using pre-assessments, that you're teaching different levels of Bloom's taxonomy, that your assessments align with those learning objectives, and it's a great way to be able to share those lessons with other school counselors so that they can use them as well. Collaborative classroom instruction is just one piece of a comprehensive data-driven school counseling program. The curriculum delivery survey is just one helpful tool, but it's not the only one. School counselors use multiple data sources to guide curriculum decisions. For example, they may use discipline referrals, attendance trends, academic data, the needs assessment, the systemic needs assessment we talked about earlier, and even just informal stakeholder feedback. So the presentation that we focused on today is just one part of the process, but in practice, it's important to consider the full picture. This slide shows how collaborative classroom instruction, specifically the curriculum delivery survey, can be a powerful tool in a larger data-informed project. So let's walk through this example of a newer data project template to see how each of the sections connect. So in the top left, you can see the project overview, which states that this outlines the overall goal, reducing discipline referrals among 11th grade Hispanic students by 2%. It also explains how the curriculum delivery survey identified a gap. Very few teachers were covering decision-making skills. So the school counselors for this project made that a target for the intervention. In the middle left section, we can see the student standard. Again, this is a specific standard, critical thinking skills to make informed decisions, and that standard became the foundation for both the small group curriculum and the classroom lessons. In the bottom left section, we can see the data sections, the student standard data, as well as the achievement data. And this came directly from the curriculum delivery survey and showed low coverage of values and decision-making content, reinforcing the need for the intervention. And then if you look at the chart for the achievement data, this is the behavioral outcome data, discipline referrals. So this connects directly to the project goal and helps measure the impact. In the top right section, we can see the systemic interventions, and it's here that we break down the interventions across 4 levels: small group, classroom, school, and family. The learning objectives, including the one tied to decision making, were implemented through direct counselor services and through collaboration with others. The bottom right, you can see the participation and student feedback. And you'll see that 75% of the target group participated in the intervention, and this quote gives voice to the impact and shows how students internalize the learning objective, realizing the consequences of their decisions and applying self-regulation. So when we say zooming out, this is what we mean. We mean multiple forms of data, intentional curriculum, aligned services, and student outcomes all working together toward a common goal. I hope this lesson helped you understand a little more about collaborative classroom instruction and school counseling and how to operationalize student standards. I've included my contact information on this slide, as well as my husband's information, who is also the developer for the website. If you have any questions, I encourage you to reach out. Thank you so much for letting me share this information with you today.